Hello and welcome to our series on the fruit of the Spirit. And so today we're talking about the first one, which is love. And so if you're new to this, the fruit of the Spirit are listed in Galatians 5 verse 22. And the section about kind of the flesh and the Spirit starts a little bit before in verse 16. And so Paul is writing and he starts out by listing off a bunch of kind of problems with the flesh, right? Actions or characteristics of sin. And then when we get down to verse 22, he starts contrasting that or comparing that to the fruit of the Spirit. And so the very first one that comes up is love. Now, love is a very popular concept, not just in the Bible, but everywhere, right? We say it all the time. I love pizza. I love my cat. I love this game. I love that purse. Love is something that is not foreign to many of us, right? There are love songs, romantic comedies, entire holidays dedicated to, well, making you buy stuff for love. But love in the Bible is a different thing. And love is something that is so closely tied to God that in 1 John chapter 4, verse 8, it actually says, God is love. Even earlier in Galatians chapter 5, in verse 14, Paul actually says, the law hangs on this word, right? Or this sentence, love your neighbor as yourself. And what Paul is doing, he's actually taking a direct quote from Jesus, who right before the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, when someone asks him, what is the law? And he says, love the Lord with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he goes on to tell the story of the Great Samaritan, explaining that we need to love people, even those who don't look like us or maybe think like us. So we see that love is central to the Christian life, obviously because God is central to the Christian life. But what does it look like? And in my reading, and I guess you could say my opinion, it boils down to this. To love is to care. And I know some of you are like, oh great, he defined love by an equally vague word. But I want you to think about it like this. It's a mindset, right? So think back to class, right? To school. Some of you are done school, some of you are still in school at various levels, but I want you to think of something. Think of the classes, on one hand, that you really cared about, and think about the classes, on the other hand, that you didn't care about. What is one of the main differences? Well, let's look at it. That class that you cared about, you probably showed up, right? Like you probably went to class. And when you went to class, you probably actually listened, right? You probably paid attention. You probably did the homework or tried on the tests. Why? Because you cared about that, because that was something that mattered to you. That was something that was important to you, and it caused you to act off of that. Think to sports, right? If there's a sport that you like, there's a sport that you care about, what are you going to do? You're going to play that sport. You're going to practice that sport. You're going to buy equipment to make sure that you can be good at that sport because you care about it, right? Now, when I say I don't care, usually what you're saying is that doesn't matter to me. That's not important to me. Plants that don't get cared for, well, they shrivel up and die. Products that you don't care about, you don't buy. They sit on shelves. Shoes that you don't care about, you'll run through the mud, you'll do all sorts of stuff. Friendships and relationships that you really don't care about, turn into strangers. The reality is, if we don't care about something, we're not going to put any effort, and usually it's something that just kind of fades away. And so that's a huge difference between whether I care or not, and it ties in really deeply to love. So when God says to love others, he's not saying like, oh, I just need to look at that person in a good light, or I need to like them. Love goes that further step, right? Love is caring about people because God cares about people. Think about it. Jesus cared so much that he spent time on earth, right? He prioritized our salvation and our life over his own. And because of that, at the cost of his life, he gave us what we needed, even though the vast majority of us wouldn't appreciate it. Because that's the second point. Love is not a business, right? Love is not given out because we expect some sort of return or some other reasoning that we give love because we want to get something. True love, biblical love, comes from the fact that we've already received something. We've already experienced it from God, and now we are giving it out. And that's the reason why love is first in this verse. Because when you think about it, all the things that come after are built off of that mindset. They're built off of that reason. They're built off of that foundation of love, because it's built off of that foundation of God. right? We can't love and we can't have the rest of the fruits of the Spirit unless we have experienced God. So if we want to, exhibit the fruit of the Spirit and we want to show love, what we're doing is we're going to need to reflect God. And what that means is we actually have to spend time with Him. But then when we're actually ready to express that love, what it means is that we actually have to care. And it becomes an active thing. Because a lot of times, people complain about their churches. They're like, oh, they say we love the youth, but then they don't listen to us, or they don't give us any opportunities, or this or that, right? So they're saying we love you, but then we don't care enough to actually put in that effort, right? And we don't want to do that. We can find examples in your daily life of all sorts of things that you care about, right? You care about sports, you care about money, you care about that video game, you care about that movie, you care about that person. When you care, there are 3 things that come out of it, right? 3 things that you give: your time, your presence, and your effort. And coincidentally, those are also the 3 main things that people are missing, and the 3 things that would help somebody feel like they are valuable. And so we show love by putting in that time, that presence, that effort, and showing people that they are important, showing people we care, showing people we love. Now, obviously, everyone's situation is different, right? Some of you are going to go off and do amazing things and show your love this way, and some of you are going to do this, but we have been put in places, right? And right now, it might just be your household. It might just be your family. And so the idea is, no matter where we are, no matter who we're interacting with, God loves us. He has given us that love, and He's poured it into us, not so that we can keep it, but He's poured it into us so that it overflows and interacts and affects those around us. And so even if it's a small group, right, we don't have to change the world, but even if it's a small group, I really want us to think about it. How can we show love? How can we show those people that we care? How can we give them time? Who can we listen to? Because that's the foundation for everything. Right? We're going to talk about a bunch of other characteristics, but when it comes down to it, it all is built off of love. The number 1 fruit of the Spirit, love. So until next time, care.